College football is back, and we're back live on the Big Mountain.
Hey, welcome back to the Big Mountain. JY, Steve, live episode week 2 already. We're 2 weeks in if you count week 0. But the real week 2. He's Money. We got JEH, and we definitely have a few others. Make sure you say hello in the chat. I'm going to do something I never knew.
Ooh.
You ready?
Yeah.
Give this one a like.
Oh, yeah.
Because we never do that. Like and subscribe. They're all subscribed.
And JH talking about how we keep going up in subs. Yeah, we do. It's been exciting. It's been really interesting. We love doing this. It's been a lot of fun. And every time we look, we're going up in subs. So we hope to see more and more of our subscribers and fans in the live chat. So,
Yeah, we love the live chat. We love the live shows. Thank you guys for joining us. We always do seem, because we do have a very solid Western base of subscribers. We always see kind of the an increase in who's tuning into our live shows as time goes on, and that's why we're going to continue to do. We'll always start with the Big Ten picks. I'll kind of wait on the Mountain West picks. Maybe hopefully give our Western folk a little more time to get on, because it is 5:30. People are either driving home from work or just getting home. 5:30 is a crappy time of night, but for us it's 8:30, and we couldn't go much later than this, or we'd pass out because of being tired, not because of my brew. Now, you know what? I lied. I said I was only going to drink Oktoberfest. This isn't Oktoberfest.
Uh-oh.
My bad. I need to get more Oktoberfest. That's the problem.
That's always the remedy.
Yeah. Anyway, so with that, we ready to get into it?
I'm ready.
I'm gonna do a quick hook.
Okay.
Because that seemed to work pretty good when we clipped it and did our spiel the last time. So, all right. Here we go. Week 2. We've got the picks for you. Steve will be doing all the Big Ten picks. I will be doing all the Mountain West picks. Let's get into the Big Ten. And before Steve gets going, I need to give him a big old one of these, because Steve was 17-1 on straight up picks. He only missed one straight up pick in week 1 for the Big Ten. He was 15-3 in all of his picks, which is crazy good. And of course, the ice cold locks that we have always said, those are the ones you want to focus on. The Big Mountain ice cold locks. 3-0, hit a dinger, hit 3 dingers, and he needed to, because I didn't do so well. But we're going to stay high on the Big Ten, and just phenomenal week 1, sir. What do you got to say for yourself? It was awesome.
It was a great week. I hope I made some people some money. The locks going 3-0. That's always what we focus on, is the locks. And like I've said before, Big Ten, I think, is a little more predictable than other conferences. And one of the things I always mention is early in the season, right now, weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4, this is the time to find some value. If you're a Big Ten fan, you're a Mountain West fan, you're a West Coast football fan, whatever, find a few teams, find one conference, and really drill in and look at them. That's what we do. And you can find some value where maybe you might know more than what Vegas knows about a specific team. We have JH on here. I know he's a huge Beavs fan, and he knows the Beavs probably better than those guys in Vegas do. I think I know the Big Ten better than the guys in Vegas do. So anyways, right now is a great time. And now watch me week 2. I might flop and go the other way and go, 3-12 or something. But
I don't think you're going to go 3-12. But I will say you ride the good, and you got to ride the bad. For anybody that does do sports betting or any sort of betting, you're not going to win every week. You got to go with the bad and the good. And that's why, especially Steve puts a lot of emphasis on those ice cold locks. And JY didn't do so good, but JY he'll turn things around here, but we're going to stick with the Big Ten. And so that's why we focus on that. But I'll tell you what, 15-3, you can put that up against anybody.
Absolutely.
Just killed it.
And if you add in, we're focusing on Big Ten and Mountain West. I also picked the Florida State game. And so overall total, when you add Florida State in, I was actually 16-3 on my picks, which is even better.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah.
You kicked that one too.
Yep.
And those Florida State Seminoles they're not liking life right
now. Starting 0-2. Yep. Yeah, it's rough for them right now. Life is rough. Honestly, though, with the 12-team playoff, when no matter how bad they started with a 12-team playoff, they're still in it. I mean, they could still win the ACC even with 2 losses. They could still fight, which I think a lot of people said that 12-team would make things less interesting in the regular season. I think it makes things more interesting, because there's more teams that can fight for the playoff. But week 1 in the Big Ten was fantastic. So many good games. I watched a ton of football, loved it. We did a recap show of the Big Ten games and picks. That was a lot of fun. And I'm ready to get into week 2 in the Big Ten, because there's a lot more cool games this week. And everyone knows I'm a Penn State fan. I'm going to be at the Penn State home game this week. So I'm just excited for week 2 in college football, week 2 in the Big Ten.
All right, well, let's go. I think, unfortunately here in week 2, we've got several NA lines. We only had one last week. That was the San Diego State game. I think you have 3 or 4 this week. I have 4 this week. A couple games really disappointed, at least as we're taping this, that do not have lines. If lines come out, I will make picks on them, probably do a short or something like that. So, again, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you get all of our updates. But, yeah, let's get into it. Let's start with an NA.
Yeah.
Because we got to talk about every game.
Yeah, so game 1 in the Big Ten, the first game up this week is Western Illinois at Indiana. There's no line available. As we locked in our picks today, there wasn't any line available. We're going to keep an eye on that. Just wanted to talk about the game a little bit. Really liked how Indiana played this last week. Kurt Signetti? What's his first? Yeah, Kurt Signetti. He's already making a name for himself in the Big Ten by some of his comments on the sideline and some of his faces. But Indiana played great. We saw exactly what we wanted to see out of them. They played great. I expect them to just crush Western Illinois. There's no line on it right now, but if they do put a line out, I'm expecting 27 and a half, 29 and a half, maybe even over 30.
Right.
Indiana as favorites at home. Yep. So that's all I'm going to say about that game.
Okay.
So moving forward to game 2, Duke at Northwestern. I am taking Northwestern minus 2.5. Taking Northwestern to cover.
I hear you.
Last week, I took Miami of Ohio plus the points. Northwestern won outright. Mm-hmm. Again, they looked a little better than I expected. For the second year in a row. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what to expect out of either of these teams. But Northwestern, they're at home again. They're in that stadium, the converted practice field, whatever it is. Looks kind of like a high school stadium right next to Lake Michigan. Looks like it's about 10 feet from the lake. There were already some fans at this previous game, Labor Day weekend, saying it was a little cold in the stadium. I think it was in the 60s with a breeze coming off the lake. Duke is coming in. Manny Diaz, they're kind of rebuilding, restarting.
Right.
So I pretty much have this as a coin flip, but it's in Northwestern. It's at home, so I'm taking Northwestern minus 2.5.
Okay. All right. Hey, I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
I hope they win.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so moving forward, game 3, Bowling Green at Penn State. I will be at this game. I'm taking Penn State to cover minus 34.5, but as you notice, I didn't lock this game, okay? And here's why. Penn State could beat Bowling Green by 50, 60, 70 points, whatever they wanted to. However, I don't think that they're not gonna want to run up the score. They just came off of a big win. They're heading into a bye week. They can get healthy. They don't need to do that. And here's the big factor: there's rain forecast for the weekend.
Okay.
There's like an 80% chance of rain in State College. It might be raining the entire game.
Okay.
That's going to keep I think we'll keep the scores down. So I'm taking Penn State to cover the 34.5. I don't love it. It may end up being a low score game. So I'm not locking this, and I haven't bet it yet. I might even just wait and see if the line drops as we get closer to game time. With the weather being a factor.
As weather's conditions worsen, typically you see lines get closer. Mm-hmm. So we'll have to see what happens there with Penn State. But anytime you get over 30 points, picking a team to cover, that's regardless of who's playing who and all that. You're gambling.
Yep.
That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing.
All right.
Okay, so moving forward, Akron at Rutgers. I am taking Rutgers to cover 23.5. Again, I loved how Rutgers looked this last week. I saw everything I wanted to see. The running game is great with Menengai. I can never say the guy's last name, but he looked great again. I think this team is on an upward trajectory. Akron just came off of kind of a butt whooping against Ohio State. And they did cover the point spread, but I think Rutgers easily covers this 23.5. I feel good about Rutgers. Akron, second week in a row, they're playing a Big Ten team.
Yeah.
That's really rough for them on the road again. So easily I like Rutgers to cover, and I would go up. I almost locked this game. I decided not to, but I feel really good about Rutgers minus 23.5.
Well, they didn't stop. They kept going till they covered the daggone spread. We talked in the review show. You didn't think they were going to cover, and 7 seconds left, they covered the daggone spread. I agree. I really like the line here for Rutgers. It's home. They want to go, and they are going to score points. I agree. I understand not a lock, but
Yeah.
that's a good line for Rutgers.
I was very close to locking this,
Yeah.
and I think the whole entire team from Greg Schiano on down, they want to send a message. We
Sure.
are for real. We are contenders.
Yep.
They're not, they're not messing around. They want to send a message.
Yep.
So, okay, moving on to the next game. This is the biggest game in the Big Ten this week. Maybe the biggest game in the country this year. Texas traveling to the Big House to take on Michigan. I am taking Texas minus 7.5. I feel pretty good about that. I would love it if it was under a touchdown, but I'm very comfortable with Texas minus 7.5. I watched the Michigan game. I said I thought Michigan would start slow this year.
Yeah.
They didn't really, their quarterback situation has been kind of fluid. We thought it was going to be orgy. It wasn't.
Right.
To me, I feel like Michigan is a team that doesn't have a starting quarterback right now.
Yeah.
Fresno, it's a very good, solid Mountain West team, but Fresno held their own against them. It was close late. It took that pick six to really break open the game. We had a lot of Michigan fans that were upset with us last week for taking Fresno to plus the points. Well, that was a winner for us. A lot of those Michigan fans thought that Michigan was going to absolutely dominate. They did not, and the score is even a little bit misleading, even though they covered the points.
Right.
Because this game was close. I think there's a lot of questions about Michigan, especially on offense. Their defense is still good.
Yeah.
And Texas, to me, is top 2, 3, 4 in the country as far as talent. They have everything, and they have everything that you want really in a team. And they have an experienced quarterback, Quinn Ewers, playing well. Came back for another year. I think in college football, when teams are even, the experienced quarterback is the X factor, and Texas has that over Michigan. But I don't know that these teams are really even right now.
No.
I think on defense they probably have similar defense. Maybe Michigan a slight edge, but Texas on offense massive edge, I believe. So I think Texas goes in there and wins by double digits. So I am perfectly fine with Texas covering 7.5.
I agree. I thought maybe seeing this line, I thought this possibly could be a lock for you too. And you're getting a lot of agreement here in the chats here. We've got Bill, rumblings, some other people saying, yeah, pretty high, pretty confident on Texas here. I'm guessing they're probably giving Michigan 3 points-ish because they're home in the Big House. Neutral site maybe is a 10.5 point spread, but even at 10.5, I like Texas here. You said, kind of 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I'm with you. If anybody's gonna roll here, it's Texas. So, we got commenters agreeing, and yeah, that is absolutely the safe bet. And Michigan fans can continue to hate on us.
Yes.
But again, we take off any sort of bias hats that we have, any homer hats when we make these picks. That's a great pick.
And we made a ton of money last year on Michigan. At the beginning of the season last year, we said they would start out slow. They did. And then we know when they were able to just get things turned around and kick it into high gear, we said, okay, Michigan is on track. And we rode that train all the way through the season and picked them once they got stuff together. So it's not an anti-Michigan bias in any way. It's just that's the kind of the state of the game right now. So
it's like we like to have winning picks.
Yes,
bias.
exactly.
That's the bias.
Yes.
Pick winners.
Yeah. So the next game 6 on the Big Ten schedule is Rhode Island at Minnesota. There's no line for it right now. But I want to talk. I don't know anything about Rhode Island. Okay.
Sure.
But Minnie, I was just, I was down on them coming into the season.
Yeah.
Everything I saw against UNC keeps me with that impression of being down on Minnie. Yes, is Minnie going to beat Rhode Island? Well, obviously they should.
Right.
But I'm just going to continue to be down on Minnie this year. I don't see where they get offense. I don't see anything good about this team. Like there's nothing they can hang their hat on and say we do this good. In other years, they could run the ball, play good defense, run the clock out, make it a small ball, take the air out of the ball, however you want to say the cliche, and run out the clock. I don't see them being able to do that this year. I think they're going to struggle, especially when they get into Big Ten play.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much all I want to say about that game.
So that's 2 out of the first 6 here that are NAs. I know that college football guy says he has 8 that have no lines. I'm shocked by some of these. I'm not surprised that Rhode Island Mini doesn't have a line. That doesn't surprise me. I am surprised by some of these other games that don't have lines. I know you have one more that you'll get to that doesn't have a line. But it is what it is. Maybe we'll get some here come Friday. I know sometimes they pop them, them off there towards the end. So
Squeeze Money says Minnie can't even light off the fireworks right. He's correct. We talked about this in the review.
Yeah.
They kicked what could have been a game-winning field goal against UNC, missed the field goal, and they still let off all the fireworks in celebration of losing.
they had paid for them. So you might as well use them.
Yeah.
Okay. Who we got next? Was it Washington versus Eastern Michigan?
Eastern Michigan at Washington. Washington easily covered this last week. The line is 25.5. I am taking Washington to cover that 25.5.
Yep.
I feel good. I feel confident about that. I still think this is a rebuilding year for Washington. They're going to struggle a little bit, but Eastern Michigan just not a good team. Traveling all the way to the West Coast, and Washington did a good job last week.
Right.
I think they'll continue to do that. So I don't have a lot to say about this game, but I do feel good about them covering 25.5.
Okay.
All right. So my next game, a big game here, the Cy-Hawk game number 8, Iowa State at Iowa, and I am taking Iowa to cover 2.5 points as a Big Mountain ice cold lock. Feel really good about Iowa.
That's awesome.
Everything I want. What did I say before the season? I expected Iowa's their defense to be good, their special teams to be good.
Yep.
And last year they won 10 games, and I said they could do it again. They just needed marginal improvement in the offense. They don't need to all of a sudden become a top 10 offense.
Sure.
They just need to get out of that bottom 10. Marginal improvement. I believe that is what we saw, especially in the second half of the first game. I like what I saw. And again, just marginal improvement. I think they're a better team than Iowa State. The game is at home. So I feel very confident in Iowa covering this 2.5 points. And that's why I made it a Big Mountain ice cold lock.
Well, and it almost looked like really the first half of the game last week. You're thinking, oh my gosh, they don't have a better offense. Well, then they did kick it in.
Yeah.
Well, they end up with 40 points or 42.
44-0, I think.
Okay, so I mean, an Iowa offense scoring. I don't care who they played. Iowa offense scoring 44 points. That is the trajectory you want to see.
Yep.
And the defense that they have is fantastic. So yeah, at a field goal game here. Very solid pick, and you picked that several weeks ago.
Yes.
And that was one of the games when we did some of our early picks.
Yep.
You were on this. The line actually, you had it at 2.5 then. It's 2.5 now. You're adding that lock to it, and I think it's a great pick. I loved it 2 weeks ago. I love it now.
I feel like the 2.5, Vegas looks at any of these Cy-Hawk games as a coin flip. And so it's in Iowa, 2.5. That's about a field goal,
Right.
Which is the general thing. But for me, I don't have this game as a coin flip. I think Iowa is a much better team. I like them, easily to cover. I would probably take them if I was just taking definitely up to 9.5. Probably I would take them just as a pick.
Good. All right. That's a lot of points that you have a buffer.
Yes,
so
exactly.
That's
Whole
why
touchdown.
That's why it's a lock. All right. So two teams you're not too big on this year. Michigan State going to Maryland. What are we doing here?
So here's the thing. So Michigan State at Maryland. I'm taking Maryland to cover 9.5. Like you said, I'm down on both of these teams a little bit, but I'm down more on Michigan State. I said I think it would take them time to get things sorted out. They looked awful last week. Aiden Child's a really good player. I'm sure Beavs fans would have loved to have kept him.
Yeah.
I think that he will do fine in the Big Ten eventually, but they're a mess right now. And Maryland, losing to Leah, they're not as good as last year, which is what I've said. They've lost, but they're still kind of just a solid middle level Big Ten team.
Yeah.
So I have no problem taking Maryland to cover this game unless something totally happens. Michigan State figures everything out suddenly.
Sure.
I think Maryland, I've got them by winning by double digits. Feel very comfortable about taking Maryland to cover the 9.5.
Okay, I was interested to see what you were going to do here because of kind of your preseason expectations. And 9.5 points isn't, that's not a super small spread,
No.
but you're saying, double digits, you're probably thinking 13, 14, I would assume. So
Especially the timing. We're in the early season.
Yeah.
If this was the last week of the season, maybe by then Michigan State would have their stuff together. But yeah. So moving on to the next game, South Dakota at Wisconsin. There's no, as we locked in our lines today, there's no line for this game.
Right.
Just wanted to talk about it. Wisconsin, they just looked awful again this last week. Similar to Iowa, where I said they needed to show marginal improvement on offense. Tyler Van Dyke coming in. I mean, he was just okay, but he still does not look like the answer. I think they're going to struggle on offense again this year. And they don't have that level of a defense and special teams like Iowa does to rely on that. I said at the beginning of the year that maybe Wisconsin will be a little bit better. this year, but have a worse record. Well, I think they may be about the same as last year and have a worse record.
Okay.
So I don't feel good about them at all. We can't make a pick here. I mean, you'd think they would beat a South Dakota team.
Oh, sure.
But I wouldn't feel comfortable even with any kind of line there. I'd be holding my nose picking them if there was a line. So
okay, all right. Well, the Dakota teams are both very solid teams. So for a team, I know it's a Big Ten team, but a team that you're very much questioning, it could be just kind of an interesting game anyway. So we don't have to pick it because they don't have a line.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, another really big game, I think, this week. Kansas and Illinois. Kansas is traveling to Illinois. I'm taking Illinois plus the 5.5. Illinois got spanked by Kansas last year. I think they're improved. I think they learned some lessons. It's at home. I don't know if Illinois will be able to upset Kansas, but I like that 5.5 points. I think it'll be a close game. So I am taking Illinois plus 5.5. I think Illinois will be a little bit improved. And I'm just still not sure on Kansas. They lost Andy Kotelnicki, their offensive coordinator. They still have plenty. They have a great coaching staff. But I see Illinois as being improved, keeping it closer, keeping it tighter. So I love taking the 5.5 points. I would love it even more if it was like 7.5.
Yeah.
But I like Illinois plus 5.5.
I'll say, you send these to me a little bit in advance, so I get to see these. This was the first one that honestly surprised me a little bit because I am higher on Kansas, and I know they lost their OC, and I get all that, but they're a really strong offensive team. So this one surprised me a bit, but hey, anybody that goes 15-3 in week 1, I shall not question.
We'll see. Like I said, it could be 3-12 this
No, you're
week,
not.
so.
Why stop? Why do you say things like that? All right.
So we have, it looks like Genetics just popped up. He said hello.
JEH is loving your hate on, not hate, but you're picking against MSU. He's hoping they go 0-12, of course. And that college football guy wonders if Michigan State's going to win more than 3 games this year. So time will tell.
Okay, so moving right along, Western Michigan at Ohio State. The line is 37.5. I'm going to go ahead and take Ohio State to cover the 37.5.
Okay.
Again, I think Ohio State could beat this team by much more than that. Western Michigan, and now I forget who they played this last week, but they gave somebody some trouble. They're a solid team.
It was another Big Ten team.
It was.
It was one of your losses.
Yeah.
Was it Wissy?
It might have been Wisconsin.
I think it was Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think it was Wisconsin. They gave Wisconsin all they could handle. But Ohio State's just too strong. The line isn't quite as big here as it was against Akron. It's about 10 points lower. So I think Ohio State will cover this. I'm not going to lock it. It's just a regular pick. I think they'll cover it. It all depends to me on when they take their starters out, if Western Michigan was able to get some points in garbage time. But straight up, if both teams played 4 quarters at 100%, Ohio State would win this game 50, 60, 70 points. So I'm comfortable taking Ohio State to cover the 37.5.
I'm going to give a little love to Western Michigan.
Okay.
And it's not that Ohio State can't and won't cover the points, but I think they are a very solid team. Again, you're up against one of the top daggone teams in the nation, but I don't think it was a fluke that they didn't or covered their getting their points against Wisconsin. I think they are a solid team. I think they have a good shot in the conference there. So it's a team I want to watch because I think they could be maybe a bit of a surprise for a G5 school this year. But, of course, they're playing Ohio State. So it's not like, they're playing a team where maybe they'll surprise them. Ohio State's one of the juggernauts that we've talked about, just going for that natty. So
and we had them number 1 in our Big Mountain power rankings.
Yeah. So we do have a question just real quick about I think they missed the Michigan-Texas game. Steve picked Texas minus 7.5.
Yep.
Very confident in that. Double digits, he's saying, for that. And we had commenters and myself that all agreed with him. So at least here on the mountain, we are very much on the Texas train here with that pick.
And Kai is hoping later on when you get to your Mountain West picks, if you'll tell him if you have any changes to your Mountain West championship.
We can talk about that when we get to the Mountain West for sure. Yep, we'll mark that down. Thank you for the question.
Okay, all right. So moving right along here. Okay, Colorado and at Nebraska. Nebraska is ready for this game. I am taking Nebraska to cover 7.5 points as a Big Mountain ice cold lock So I like Nebraska to cover 7.5 points as a Big Mountain ice cold lock.
Nailed it again. A team you're very high on this season. They came out, had a great showing here in week 1. I'm anxious for this team because it's Colorado, Nebraska. And, you know, David Jurgensen, who's a Nebraska guy, I know he'll be watching this game and rooting for his Cornhuskers. I'm very interested in this game to see how, because this really is going to really swing to me. You know, is Nebraska going to be the team that you think they can be? And after week 1, we absolutely think that's the trajectory they're in. Colorado, yeah, they kind of just are who they are. And, you know, they get a lot of publicity and they have some of those high-powered offenses, but they do nothing for me. I know a lot of people think it's great. They do absolutely nothing for me. I'll be rooting for Nebraska in this game, but it's a big game for both teams.
I'm going to hit you with my first, here's the deal.
Here's the deal.
Yeah, here's the deal with this game. So, yes, Nebraska, you know, we've seen everything that we wanted to see out of Nebraska. Dylan Raiola looked fantastic. The dude's got moxie. He's got swagger. He did not look like a true freshman starting his first game.
Right.
Got a lot of confidence, immensely talented. We've seen what Matt Rule does in his second year. He has a track record at this point, from Temple to Baylor, here to Nebraska. So, to me, everything is pointing stock up on Nebraska. And here's the thing. This is not here's the deal. Here's the thing. Here's the thing on Colorado. They're going to get all this hype. It is what it is. Shedeur Sanders looked fantastic.
Yeah.
He may end up being the number 1 quarterback taken this year.
And Travis Hunter's just specimen.
Amazing two-way player. They're fantastic. They're going to score points on offense. Yeah. However, I don't like their running game. I don't like their defense. And I really think Nebraska matches up well against them. I think Nebraska will also be able to score points. And Nebraska has more of a defense. They have a running game. They're just a better overall team all around, I think. I think Colorado is, again, going to struggle this year. They're not going to their wins are not going to match their hype.
Sure.
And that's not taking anything away from Sanders and Travis Hunter, because 2 fantastic players.
Yeah.
They just don't have the team all around, in my opinion. So I like Nebraska to win this game by double digits, and that's why I made them an ice cold lock at 7.5.
Awesome. So that's our second ice cold lock. We had Iowa at -2.5 earlier, and now you have Nebraska at -7.5 for 2 of your ice cold locks. All right, we got a couple more games, and these last 2 games are games that you and I are both picking because it pits a Mountain West team versus a Big Ten team.
Yep.
So where are we going first?
Okay. So Squeeze Money says Colorado D is terrible. I totally agree with him.
Yeah.
But moving on, Boise State at Oregon. I am taking Boise State. I think at one point the line was 19.5.
Yeah.
I think we locked it in at 18.5. So I'm taking Boise State to cover, or plus 18.5. Oregon, they had a tough week 1 against Idaho. Mm-hmm. Idaho got after them. They got after the quarterback. Oregon was missing some players, and I don't know if we have a status yet. Their starting center was out, along with some other offensive linemen. I've heard that maybe some of those guys will be back, but maybe not the center.
Okay.
To me, Boise is just a much better team than Idaho. I know Boise didn't end up covering this week, but Boise has a great offense. I think they have a better defense than Idaho. I love them getting the 18.5 points. I think this may be. I don't think Oregon is quite where we thought they would be, at least at the beginning of the season. Maybe by the end of the season they will be, but I don't think they're that offensive juggernaut yet, especially if they don't get some of these players back. So maybe I'm overreacting from the week 1 Oregon match with Idaho, but I think this will be a lower scoring game than if a week ago I would have said take the over no matter what it is. If it was over 65.5, just take it. But I think it's going to be lower scoring than that. I don't think Oregon's offense is that fine-tuned machine yet. So I love taking Boise State plus the 18.5.
Yeah, and people are reminding everyone that Boise is 3-0 lifetime against Oregon. That's history.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun stat.
Yeah.
I saw a really cool. It was an 0-3, and the 3 was kind of the B of the Boise. It was for Boise State, reminding the Ducks that they're 0-3. And that was kind of a cool little thing that Boise did. But it's a decent number of points, and Oregon didn't show great in week 1. Do they have a huge rebound to be like, hold up, guys. Yeah, we are in the top 3, 4, 5 of the nation. We'll see. But when you're losing the O-line, and I think you mentioned to me, the center was a walk-on or something like that?
Center is a walk-on.
Yeah, I mean, that's just crazy.
I think they had at least one freshman on the O-line. They had major injuries now, and we don't know the status yet on if those players are going to be back.
Okay, all right. So that's the first of the two. The second is Utah State at USC. USC looked very good here this past week in week 1 against a very good LSU team. Yep. So where are you going?
So Utah State at USC. I'm taking USC to cover the 28.5. I like this all day, every day, and twice on Saturday. USC, to me, the only question about USC coming into the season was their defense. Could they improve their defense? I said I thought they would with Danton Lynn coming over. Yeah. And, they gave up some yards, and they gave up some points to LSU. Nussmeier had a fantastic game against them. Yeah. But when they needed stops, when they needed key stops, they were able to be physical and get those stops, which I think is a huge turnaround for USC. That was their defense was soft as baby poop the last couple years. Yeah. To me, it looks like a total different defense. Even if I don't see them having a top 10 defense, it's kind of like the opposite of Iowa. Mm-hmm. But from going to just a terrible, soft defense that doesn't know how to line up right, they have a defense that can get those stops when they're needed, and their offense still continues to look fantastic. Miller Moss, he may be the best quarterback in the Big Ten this year, honestly. He looked great. He looked fantastic in the bowl game last year, and we said, will that carry over? Well, so far against LSU, it did. He averaged, I think they said on the broadcast, 10.5 yards per pass attempt. Not pass completions, but pass attempt. Wow. Which is fantastic. That was last year the Heisman Trophy winner. That was his, so that he's already coming out against LSU as a Heisman Trophy level pace. Utah State, I'm rooting for Utah State to do well this year. I just don't think they have the horses to run with USC, especially if USC's defense is actually solid. Yep. So I have no problem taking USC to cover the 20.5. I think they beat them by over 30 points. Yeah. Okay. Well, those last two games I'll be picking as well. I won't give that away quite yet. We'll see if we agree. So last week we had 2 games. Mm-hmm. You hit both of them. Yep. You were 2-0 on them. I was 1-1. Yep. I went against Hawaii because of that horrendous week 1 that they had. And they actually played much, much better. The team that I thought they would be in the preseason. We were talking about that as well. So I want to just let's go hit some comments here real quick. I saw early on we had, we sent out some of the glasses, some of our good old Big Mountain ice cold glasses from our show. Yep. I know that college football guy, and I think Chris and Squeeze Money, whoever ordered them, I think at this point has gotten the Big Mountain glasses. So that's fantastic. We've got more. If you'd like a glass, we are, what are we? At the Big Mountain Podcast on a Venmo. So just send us a Venmo, $28. That's with shipping and everything. You'll get a glass and you'll get a good old lock sticker, ice cold lock sticker. Just give us your address in there. And we've got the stickers. I saw Chris was saying he loves the ice cold lock. He is our ice cold lock man. He's putting the ice cold lock on the message board. We got all of our stickers. We got our primary logo. Make sure I turn that around. We got our secondary logo, and we got the new Big Mountain Ice Cold Lock logo. So if you guys want these, the same thing, $5 for all 3 of them. And again, that's to the Venmo if you're interested. So that college football guy says he got his glass. His glass arrived.
Good.
And Chris, he's giving me a shout out. Stellar work, Steve. That was one killer set of picks. Hope you made some money, Chris. Yeah. Is that Chris from the Trailhead Club?
That is the Trailhead Club, Chris. Right. Yeah, he changed his name on us.
Yes, yeah.
But that's okay. That's right. Yeah, it's Chris. That's the real deal. And I just want to make sure that I know there's some other things I know. Bill said that he got Rutgers at 22.5 a little bit earlier. Sometimes you can get some really good lines early when they first come out. And, we've talked about them before. We'll probably get them out again this year because you can get some good value in early lines. You're going to hear me about some of the lines that have moved. And I'm still taking them, but they moved a few points. So you can definitely get value there. I think overall that was it. So let's get... where are we at here? All right, so we got some new people on. Welcome aboard here. We got what is that?
Ansley.
There you go.
Thinks
Ansley.
Boise's going to get blown out by 20 points. It's possible. I mean,
Absolutely.
Oregon is a great team. If they come out firing, that's very possible.
Yeah, so let's go back up. I want to talk real quick about the question about the Mountain West before we get into the picks for the Mountain West. So Kai asked about have we changed anything? Has our opinions changed regarding who we think the Mountain West champ will be after week 1? My answer to that is absolutely not. If anything, it's only grown stronger because I had both Boise and UNLV in the championship game. UNLV looked great, and I just don't think, I really question if Fresno can hold up throughout the season. They look great against Michigan. They held their own. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to hold up, and UNLV looks fantastic. I did take Boise to win the game, and I'm still going to stick with that. So no, nothing for me has changed. I still like those two teams to make the championship game, and I still like Boise to win the championship, but they got to figure out that secondary. That was my biggest concern. We talked about it on my review. I keep saying review episode, and the good, the bad, the ugly that I did for the Mountain West. So no, for me, Kai, nothing changed. Steve, you were more on the Fresno side, and they did have a good showing. So I would assume maybe nothing has changed. But what do you think about that?
So nothing has changed at the very top for me, sort of. So I came into the season thinking that Fresno and Boise were the two clear-cut favorites above everyone else, and nothing has really changed about those two teams for me. I was very impressed by Fresno State against Michigan. I loved the way their D-line held up and their offensive line at certain times. They came out and they didn't have the skill players. They don't have, Will Johnson like Michigan has, but they looked really good. And Boise, they gave up too many points. I get it, their defense. But what Genty has done, we'll see. I think the jury's still out on Madsen a little bit. We'll see.
Not for me.
He had a good game. Well, the entire jury. You're just one of 12. Okay. So the entire jury's still a little bit out on Madsen, but I think they have options there at quarterback. Oh, yeah. So the team that has kind of moved and changed to me a little bit is UNLV. I didn't see that. I saw those top two and then a big drop off where now I'm ready. The way UNLV's D performed, their defense performed, I'm willing to kind of put them up there with the other two and say there's a top three. I still think Fresno benefits the most because of their schedule.
Sure.
They have the easier schedule, which that just is what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to basically say I think those three are like the three co-favorites where I before I felt Vegas was UNLV was a step below.
Well, and remember we had the three-way tie to get into that championship game. So we'll see what happens. Obviously I said the ugly was that UNLV, the Wyoming game, massive ugliness. I'm hoping they can move past that, especially as they get into the Mountain West. Did anything change? Wyoming better show up really, really fast. But I didn't have them in the championship game anyway, so I don't know if that really matters.
Well, that was, I think maybe even in our Big Mountain Power rankings, I may have had Wyoming above UNLV. I can't remember. I had Wyoming and UNLV kind of the same, and now, after that performance, I think you got to drop Wyoming a little bit, and UNLV, they just showed out. So
for sure. All right, Steve, are we ready for the so here's what I got, Steve. Because there's so many daggone in conference games, or not in conference, but Mountain West games that don't have lines.
Yes.
I went fairly heavy on out of conference games.
Okay.
I've got you. Everybody knows I'm picking Oregon State and Washington State this year, so consider them as you will. I'm picking them at 1, 2, 3. I have 4 other games that I'm going to pick as well.
I love when you come out with these. I never know where you're going to go.
And he hasn't seen these. So
no,
I get to see Steve's, and Steve doesn't get to see mine.
Yes. And these are little gems. And I love when you dip down into the Sun Belt and wherever. And I made a lot of, I think I made more money last year from your out of conference picks than your in conference picks.
That's not good. Don't say that.
Well, but these are some gems. So people need to pay attention. Even if you're a Mountain West fan, if you're betting on games, take a look at what JY's doing out of conference.
And before we get there, Tommy Gunn just says the UNLV-Kansas game is going to be a great game. And to start the season, I went, I'm still a little concerned that Kansas offense is going to be a bit too much. But if the UNLV, and I was higher on the UNLV defense, but if they can perform at this level throughout, that is going to be a great game. Kansas versus UNLV, week 3. I don't get to pick UNLV this week because there's no line for UNLV. So that's a game I don't get to pick.
So before you get in your picks, I want to, if we could, Tyler Nelson asked, JY and Steve, do you prefer Boise State Oregon game on regular TV, network TV, or the Peacock Network? Now, luckily, I have access to the Peacock Network. What I will say is I think everybody would rather this be on, over-the-air television that most people could access it. I do think, Peacock is the NBC Universal Peacock. They're putting a lot of money into this platform. They want some marquee games on there to get interest and get people over there. So I do think it's a big deal that this game is going to be on Peacock. It just sucks for the people who don't have Peacock and can't watch the game. So I think there's good and bad to it.
Well, and, JEH mentions the Big Ten Network, so Quack fans can't watch it. There's that whole issue between the Big Ten Network and was it Comcast and all that kind of crap. It always seems to happen this time of year, but anyway.
Yeah, and ESPN isn't available on some network. It's
the whole
just
thing's silly.
A bunch of crap.
Okay, so with that, we're going to get into the Mountain West picks as well as my several other picks, as I call them. So we don't have lines on Colorado State. I don't have a line on Wyoming, which I'm really upset about. Wyoming, Idaho. I wanted to pick that game. I don't have a line on Fresno, Sac State. That one really pisses me off. I really wanted to pick the Fresno game. And there's no line on the UNLV game. I'm not surprised by that because they're playing, Utah Tech or something like that. So that doesn't surprise me. But the Wyoming and Fresno games really surprise me. I don't have lines to pick this evening. So we're going to start with the San Jose State going to Air Force. The line is 6.5 here. We just did a preview video with what would it be? What was he?
He was a
local reporter,
yeah.
Editor for The Spear. Student reporter for The Spear out in San Jose State. That will be our preview episode that we drop on Thursday. The San Jose State Air Force. And I'm taking San Jose State getting 6.5 points. This line opened at 4.5. So it's actually gone up. They're getting more points here. It's just too many points for me. I think it's going to be a very low scoring game. Was not impressed with Air Force. I was really worried about them. They played Merrimack. They didn't cover that spread. So here's where I'm at. I think Air Force is likely to win the game, but I think it's a field goal game, maybe 2 field goal game. So I like getting the points here with San Jose State. Was impressed with their offense. Yes, they're playing a different style of defense than what they played last week with Sac State. But I like getting these points. So I'm going with the Spartans here, a team that I was down on to start the season, and a great way to start the Mountain West in conference games in week 2. I'm very excited for this game.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with the way your pick went after seeing how well that San Jose State offense did.
Yeah.
And Air Force, I've been saying this since our preview episodes of the season. I'm a little worried about Air Force this year. So
I am too. So I'm taking the points with San Jose State. So game 2, I got here Georgia Southern versus Nevada. Georgia Southern that scored a lot of points against Boise, and Nevada that's had a very impressive start to the season. A very close line at 1.5, but I'm going to take Georgia Southern here. -1.5. Yes, they're at Nevada. The line opened at 3.5. It has closed down because of how well Nevada has played. I just, Georgia Southern covered against Boise, which a lot of people I don't think thought they would. So they clearly have a good offense. Yes, you can knock the secondary of Boise. I just don't see Georgia Southern. They're going to do everything they can to not go 0-2 to start the season against 2 Mountain West opponents. So I like it to be 3 to 7 points here. So I think it's going to be a close game. I just like Georgia Southern here. I kind of put that SMU game off to the side because SMU didn't show up for 3/4 of that damn game. And when they did realize, crap, we might lose this game, yeah, they scored the points they needed to. By no means am I saying Georgia Southern is the SMU offense, but they do have a good offense. So, yes, it is -1.5. So I'm going to take the favorites traveling to Nevada. I hate to go against the Wolfpack here because I think they've had a great start to the season. But I think if this is a field goal game, I think it's Georgia Southern for the win. So I'm going -1.5.
I'm a little surprised. Nevada's on a bit of a heater. I have no idea if they'll win this game because I just don't know enough about Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
But I think Nevada, the way they've started, really interesting story. I love how that quarterback is playing, and I think they may have found something with his coach and quarterback combination. So I'm, however it goes, I'm really interested to see how Nevada does, especially on offense.
It was a struggle for me to pick. It's a coin flip game, 1.5. I mean, it's a coin flip game. So I'm just going to go with Georgia Southern. I'm going to go kind of back to my preseason. Yes, they've been impressive. How long can they kind of keep that going? We shall see. Again, I'd love to see Nevada do great. I just don't. I can't bet on them.
So one thing that's interesting. So Georgia Southern, that Boise just played them, and Genty ran for 6 touchdowns.
Right. Yes.
Strong running game. Where Nevada, it looks like the strength of their offense is their passing game. So we're seeing them play 2 Mountain West teams in a row, and I'm just kind of wondering, how that ends up working out.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's more about the defensive side of the ball, honestly, for me. So we'll see. Yeah, exactly. We'll see how it works out. Yeah. But all right. So here we go. The first of 2, the Boise versus Oregon, and I'm going with you, Steve. I'm actually taking the points with Boise plus 18.5. And I think it's going to be a fairly close game. I know we had some commenters saying 20 plus and all that kind of stuff, which it could easily be. It's a lot of points for a really good team. And I feel like this is their year. Boise's got everything going for them. The only question mark, as I said earlier, was the secondary. I still have that question mark. And because of that question mark, I'm also going to take a pick here on the over. And you mentioned this. So it's over 61.5. You said during yours, I kept my mouth shut because I was going to make this pick. You kind of said that, before last week, you'd be happy going, 65, 70, whatever points. You're a little worried about Oregon maybe being able to cover. I think they're both in the 30s. I mean, if the Georgia Southern and Boise game are 90 or whatever the heck they ended up, 90 some points, the Oregon Boise game should be just the same. I mean, they should both be in the 30s at the least. So I'm also going to be taking the over. This is for Chris. He asked about over-unders. Right. Over 61.5. I know you said you're maybe not as high on that given what Oregon was doing. I just think there's just too many question marks on that secondary for Boise. They're going to give up points. I like the over here in the low 60s. The one thing that I'm really going to watch on this game is I watched a few breakdowns of the Oregon game. Dylan Gabriel coming in, he was pretty efficient. Like you look at his stat line and it looks pretty decent against Idaho. But I saw a stat that his passes averaged, I think, like 4 yards in the air. So I'm really interested to see, does Oregon come out and do the dink and dunk against Boise State's defense, which I think would play into the hands of Boise State. I think they would rather see that. Yeah. Or do they really try and press the ball down the field and try and say, hey, our wide receivers are better athletes than your DBs. Right. Really interested to see that matchup because I think that's the difference between a really nice tight game that stays under that point spread, or if Oregon really pushes it and they're and they can hit those receivers downfield, I think Boise might be in for some struggle. Yeah, and it might be a high scoring game then, like you were talking about. Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, heck, make it whatever. Let me do quick math here. 30-48. Yeah, and I win both bets. There you go. But anyway, all right. So we're going to go to one. I said I'm always going to be picking the Beavs, where it's easy this week because the Beavs play San Diego State, another game I'm very interested in here. The line is 5.5, and I'm sorry for the Aztec fans, but I'm going to go with the Beavs at -5.5. Yes, I understand San Diego State's running game looked amazing. I understand Marquise Cooper said I'm better than he wants to be the best running back in the Mountain West, and that's great. Every running back should say they want to be the best running back. I get that. I'm not going to knock on the guy. But I just think Oregon State's got overall more talent. It's just a completely different defense that they're going to be going up against than the Texas A&M Commerce team. It took them a while to get going against, and they did get going eventually. But I'm sorry, at -5.5, I'm surprised it's this low. I really am surprised it's this low. So I am taking the Beavs on this, -5.5. Yes, they're traveling south to San Diego State, but the weather down there is daggone beautiful. Yeah. So that has absolutely nothing to do with it. Taking the Beavs here.
Yeah, it's not a tough travel destination.
No.
I think the Beavs are just the better team. I love the pick there. And I think the Beavs come out, and I think that they will definitely exceed that point spread. I don't think it's going to be. I was surprised at such a low point.
I was too.
I thought it'd be 8.5, 9.5, something like
certainly over a touchdown. Yeah. 7.5, 8.5, yep, for sure. So I like this being even at 6.5. I'm on the Beavs here. I mean, the touchdown plus. I really like the Beavs. So the next one that we both got to pick, the Utah State versus USC game. I'm with you. I'm taking USC -20.5. So impressive. Unless they just have this kind of a flop game coming off of a really big high against LSU, Utah State's offense will not be able to keep up with USC's offense. And what I saw from USC's defense, my goodness, I was very impressed. So yes, at 28.5, I really like this pick. I'm not going to lock it, but I do really like the pick here for USC. So taking them. So we agree this week. We're 2-2 in agreement. Both taking Boise, both taking USC.
So before you move on to your next pick, Chris asked us if Genty can keep on the pace to win the Heisman. Can he win the Heisman, or will the level of competition be his undoing? Well, here's the deal. 6 touchdowns. If he manages that, he's going to have, what's that math? 6 touchdowns times 12 games. 72 touchdowns.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, if he has 72 touchdowns, he's at least going to be on the stage in New York City. But I mean, there's no way that anybody can have 6 touchdowns a game.
Right.
But here's, Genty, I think a win for me is getting him on that stage. There's 2 things that are holding him back. One, he's a running back, and as we've seen, this is a quarterback and maybe wide receiver award the last 10, 15 years. It's really hard for running backs. Back in the old days, the 90s, the early 2000s, if a running back could get 2,000 yards, they would almost guaranteed a Heisman. But we're not in that era anymore, so that holds him back. And then yes, being in the Mountain West, the level of competition. Now, if he were to come out this week and really show out against Oregon, that would be huge. And we've already been on that Genty for Heisman hype train since the spring, I think, maybe back since December or January of last year. We're going to keep pumping that, but I think it's an uphill battle for those 2 reasons. He's running his position and the conference he plays in. But again, to me, let's keep on that train and get him on the stage in New York. I think he deserves it. I
agree. And, and with that, I did just bet him. I think it was plus 7,500. 7,500. And I'm happy to put some money on that because I think his stock will continue to rise. And what's the one thing that every great running back has?
Good offensive line.
Good offensive line. And, finally people are starting to talk about how good this Boise State offensive line is because you don't get 6 touchdowns, these crazy open run. You can't just break a tackle every time. You've got to be able to have holes to run through. So I do need to give a shout out to the Boise State offensive line.
And if you were at the beginning of the season, you're like, hey, what does Genty need to do to have a good, solid Heisman campaign? He knocked it out of the park in week 1. You couldn't ask for better than that.
Right.
And so this week, if they play well against Oregon, if he has 100 yards and a couple touchdowns, that would just keep that momentum going.
We got Josh back. He's a Utah State Aggie fan. He calls our pick BS, Utah State all day, and then he says, no, really, but I just hope they don't get too banged up. Agree. Just don't get injured. If they can keep it a close game, great. Hey, if they can beat the spread there, good on you, but live the fight another day. You've got bigger aspirations in the Mountain West than getting your beat up here against USC potentially. So, all right. So we're going to Wazzu versus Texas Tech. I was shocked here at -1.5 is the spread. Texas Tech barely winning in week 1. Barely winning in week 1, going to overtime against Abilene Christian. Wazzu at -1.5, and I am taking Wazzu here. It's in Washington State. They have a fantastic team. Their new quarterback, I didn't write his name down, and I'm forgetting it. If we have, here we go. Squeeze Money's here. Remind me of the new quarterback's name, and obviously Cam Ward's gone. But the new guy had a great week one. They have a very solid team, so I'm taking Wazzu -1.5 with my week 2 Big Mountain Ice Cold lock. I love it. I love this line. I love what Wazzu did in week 1. I hate what Texas Tech did in week 1, and it's in Wazzu. Let's do this, Cougs.
Absolutely. I can't believe the line. That's where the line is. I think just the national media and Vegas, they're just assuming both Oregon State, Washington State. Oh, they lost all these players in the transfer, portal, whatever.
Yeah,
they're without a conference. They're just not going to be that good. And I think both teams are going to surprise some people. They're going to surprise the national media. They're going to surprise Vegas. I think this line is a little disrespectful, honestly.
I was surprised. And Texas Tech's don't get me wrong. Texas Tech is a very good team, but they just are coming off a crazy, silly, stupid close game in overtime.
Yeah.
Now they have to travel up to Wazzu, and Wazzu has everything to gain here. They want to show that they care. They're hitting Texas Tech at a time where their season could just fall apart. Yeah. And I just, everything about this game, I love it. I appreciate it, Squeeze Money. John Mateer. Hopefully I'm saying that right. John Mateer is the new quarterback. Thank you for that. He's worried about their young secondary. And I get that. I just, there's too much to like about Wazzu, and I'm very happy with our third Big Mountain Ice Cold.
Yeah, traveling to Pullman, Washington from Texas, no easy deal either.
Yep. All right, so let's get to my 4 other picks. This one, I'm anxious to hear what you have to say about this, Steve, because I was very surprised by this line.
Okay.
It's the Georgia Tech versus Syracuse game. The line is 2.5. I love this line for Georgia Tech. -2.5. It's a slight favorite here. But my goodness, Syracuse gave up 436 yards to the Ohio Bobcats in week 1. Mm-hmm. Not a knock to our Ohio Bobcat fan friends. Obviously Steven is a Bobcat fan. But there's just too much offense here for Georgia Tech not to cover 3 points. So I am taking the Yellow Jackets -2.5 up in Syracuse.
I really like Georgia Tech's in the trenches. I like their lines, their offensive and defensive line. Honestly, I think with Syracuse, I think the reason we see the line the way it is there was preseason hype with Syracuse, the coaching change, bringing in all these new players and all of that. And I think it's going to take Vegas a little while to really gauge Syracuse. So I think there's some of that leftover preseason hype. And I'm with you on this pick.
Yeah, I was close to locking this one. I really hesitate out of conference types of locks. And it's one of those picks where you're like, is it really that close? Which means I'm going to lose it probably because I'm so astonished at the line. But we'll see.
So before we move on to the next pick, Squeeze Money says Mike Leach is also going to be inducted into the Washington State University Hall of Fame this weekend. So you just picked the Washington State game.
Yep.
I think in honor of Mike Leach, we need to do the Pirates. And
that's right.
Okay, so you ready?
Yep. Arr! And that's just another reason they're going to hit that lock.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to pour one out and run up the score and win this game for Mike Leach.
I'm gonna and this time of year is my favorite time of year to go back and watch Mike Leach opine on Halloween candy and what are the best Halloween candies. That was one of the best sideline interviews ever.
Did you see the one about the marriage?
I don't know.
Where the lady interviewer, the female interviewer, was interviewing, and she said she was going to be getting married. He told her, "You got to go elope. Just trust me on that." You got to watch that one. It's hilarious.
I'll have to watch that one.
There's gobs of good stuff,
Mike
but
Leach.
that's a funny one.
The Pirate.
All right, the next one. You knew I have to pick this.
Yeah.
Who haven't I picked yet? Who I love to pick.
Oh, it could be. Let's see. SMU, Texas State.
No. SMU's coming up.
Okay.
SMU's coming up.
Okay.
The Utah Utes, baby.
Okay.
Utah Utes versus the Baylor Bears.
Okay.
The line is 14.5. This is going to be the Hello Big 12. We are here to annihilate you. We are going to demolish Baylor at home. I think Rising goes off. I think the Utes win big. So I take the Utes -14.5. I think they win by 3 touchdowns plus.
Yeah, I love it. I love Utah this year. I picked them to win the Big 12 and make the playoff. To me, a lot of the really good teams in the country are in the Big Two, and the SEC, and in the Big Ten. However, I think outside of those two, Utah might be that best team outside of the Power Two.
I love betting them.
Yeah, and Rising, it looks like he's just back to full form.
Yep.
So I'm with you.
And Vegas never respects them. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is our second year picking this, but you and I have been picking for several years. I'm often giving you the Utah Utes to pick. Last year I laid off them a few times. I shouldn't have because they still cover.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, Vegas always underestimates
because they're not
Utah.
flashy. They're out there. And here's the thing. Last year, not just Cam Rising, Utah had a ton of injuries. They had the most, what do they call them, player minutes lost to injury last year of any FBS team.
Yeah.
They have a lot of people back this year.
Yeah.
And I think they're pissed off about the way they've been disrespected this last year. And they are ready to kick some butts and take some names.
I agree. So, Utah's they're just going to show the Big 12 that they are, they're going to be the champion. They're going to run through as many people as they possibly can. All right, so the next one, and you said SMU.
Yeah.
So we got BYU versus SMU. And I went back and forth. What do I pick on this? I'm going to pick the over here. Again, I got to throw another over here. It's 55.5. I like SMU to really come on strong, to really score a lot of points. And I think BYU gets some points here as well to hit this over. I think their offense is starting to roll. Their defense is just giving up too much points. I don't necessarily like the BYU offense, but I don't really like SMU's defense too much right now. So there'll be some points scored there. I like SMU to be 35-40. In terms of points scored. That means BYU only needs to be 17 to 20-ish, and I think that's very reasonable. So I am taking the over 55.5 BYU SMU. My last one, and this is just coming off the UNLV game. I saw this line and I'm like, I have to pick this line. I can't believe. This is another one. I just couldn't believe the line. Houston versus Oklahoma. The line is 29.5. Houston has no offense, and that's not a knock on UNLV's defense. UNLV's defense is very good. Oklahoma's defense is even better, and Houston isn't going to score many points. So I get it's 29.5. I think Oklahoma is going to wipe the absolute floor with Houston here. So I'm taking Oklahoma minus 29.5.
Love it. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. This is going to be, they're going to win by well into the 30s, 40 points.
Yeah, it should be a slaughter knock.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be just a thrashing here. The Sooners over the Cougars. So I've got several Cougars that I'm betting this week. So, I had to throw in some other picks. There's a couple here that I really liked. I really like that Georgia Tech minus 2.5. I, of course, love my Utes. And I really like the Oklahoma here. So I'm hoping to get back on track. I was 12-3 straight up. Which is great. I love 12-3 straight up, but I was 4-8 with my picks last week. That's just not good enough, and my ice cold locks melted.
Yeah,
that doesn't work either. So you carried the load. I'm going to get on the train. I'm going to get on the winning train this week. I'm comfortable with my picks. I love Wazzu with my lock, and I like my other picks. That's why I'm throwing them out there.
Yeah, no, I'm looking for forward to another good week of football. Really excited about that Boise State Oregon game. There's a lot of good games. The Michigan-Texas game this week, just a lot of fun. And then Colorado-Nebraska. To me, that's one of the games of the week. Beyond, Texas and Michigan are probably the biggest matchup of quality teams.
Right.
But Colorado at Nebraska, a lot of fun. And then the Boise at Oregon. Those two games, I think both of us will be up late watching those games and enjoying them.
Well, if YO and Fresno get any sort of lino, I will be probably putting out some picks on them as well. I know, Bill, no Wyoming because I don't have a line for Wyoming. I looked everywhere I could, and nobody gave Wyoming a line, and I'm very disappointed in it. And I don't know what to say.
My theory is Vegas lost so much money this week because of my awesome picks that they're gun shy and they're worried about putting out picks on too many teams.
Well, you were 15, or you had a 12 of 15. They took 4 of my freaking games. Yeah. They could have made money on. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So, Steve, I think there was one item you wanted to talk about before we wrap this sucker up. Another college football-y type of item. So,
yes.
What's that about?
So we're not going to get into a big discussion this week. We want to kind of set this up for next week. I watched the Connor Stallions Michigan sign stealing documentary on Netflix. It's fantastic. I encourage everybody, if you're a college football fan, even if you don't like Michigan, watch it because it is amazing. Some of the stuff, there's some stuff in the video that has not been part of the national news. There was some kind of new groundbreaking stuff, and then just seeing just the behind the scenes and whatever. So I encourage everybody to watch it. I've already seen it. You're gonna try and watch it this week, and next week we're gonna talk about it. Probably during the live episode, maybe in a different episode, maybe a separate episode if we decide to, but most likely in the live episode next week. But it's amazing. I think there's a lot more to come. It's a story, I think we might still just be at the beginning of this story.
Oh my gosh.
So I encourage you to watch it. Really interesting. And they make some good points beyond just Michigan. And it leads into this year, the big change where they call it the Connor Stallions rule now, where teams have the radio communication, where the coaches can call the plays directly into the quarterback's helmet. I don't think that rule would be in place this year because the teams were fighting it for the longest time.
Yeah.
So just a great documentary. Watch the Connor Stallions sign stealing documentary on Netflix. We're going to talk about it, have some discussion next week during a live episode.
Is it one episode or is it like a mini series?
I think it's just one episode.
One whatever.
Yeah. Just one episode, one documentary. Okay. It's it's part of a ongoing series. There's something before the name of it. I think they also
like cheating in college football.
No, I forget. Okay. It's called Behind the Story or something. They did. I'm pretty sure it's the same people that did a documentary last year about a fake high school that these people created just to get players to, and they were playing in games against some of the best teams in the country and just getting stomped.
Yeah.
I think it's the same people that did that documentary did this documentary. So It's really interesting, and it's very clear the people doing the documentary, they were following Connor Stallions. They were with him, embedded with him last year while these games were going on, and he actually traveled to games and watched them with this camera crew.
What?
Yeah, you have to watch it. You got to watch it.
Okay, now I'm confused.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, those are our picks. As I said, we've got a San Jose State versus Air Force preview coming out tomorrow. Had a special guest from the Spear. So give that a look-see. He obviously is with the Spartans, so he talks a little bit about them. We get into Coach Ken and all kinds of good stuff. So it is a very interesting interview, about 15-ish minutes. So check that one out. And then we got week 2 coming up, and we are super excited. Yep. We'll probably do another review for both Big Ten and Mountain West. I don't know if we'll do them all season, but certainly here in the beginning, we're getting a feel for some of these teams, who is where we thought they would be, who is not really where we thought they'd be. And this San Jose State Air Force is going to tell me a lot. Super excited for that game. Super excited for the Oregon State SDSU game. I think this is going to be another great week. So
I agree with you, and I'm excited. Mike Leach being installed into the
Hall
Hall
awesome.
of Fame,
I didn't know that.
Washington State University, and I think we need to keep that campaign going. They need to change the rules for a college football Hall of Fame. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just an arbitrary number, off by decimal points on a winning percentage to keep a guy out. So that's something we talked about in the offseason. They need to change that rule. He's obviously a Hall of Fame coach, meant a ton to the sport.
Yep.
And if he wouldn't have died suddenly, I think he would have definitely met that threshold to be in the Hall of Fame. So they need to. I'm glad to see Washington State doing it, and now the National College Football Hall of Fame needs to change the rules, make an exception, whatever.
Absolutely. I agree with you. So, hey, with that, we thank you guys for watching. As always, I think we were up to 40, 50 people on this live episode, which is fantastic. As we did last week, we are going to kind of shut this one off by about midnight Eastern, and then we're going to repost this here on Friday. And so if you're here live, you get to hear our picks right now. Everybody else has to wait. So for those of you that are seeing this later on, make sure you check us out Wednesday evenings so you can get our picks earlier than everybody else, because these lines can change sometimes. And you got to get on this guy because he is hot. So, hey, with that, We give you a cheers. Cheers, crisscross.
Chris.
Everybody agrees with you on the Mike Leach. So we'll pour one out for him. I am so happy to hear that Washington State's doing that. I'm anxious to see that game as well. With that, hey, we'll see you guys next time on the Big Mountain.